threw his arms around him and kissed him. The son said to him, "Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son." But the father said to his servants, "Quick, bring the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his
Welcome
feet."
to the podcast, everybody. This is Crucifying Addiction. I'm Bailey.
I'm Trent.
And today we have our special guest.
Hey guys, I'm Victoria.
How's it going, Victoria?
I'm well.
That's great. So, Victoria, I met you through YA, through our
Yes.
church, and one day they had a panel,
Mm-hmm.
and you got to share a little bit of your story.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, for sure. So I actually moved to San Angelo from right out of high school for college. I first came to Celebration with my parents because I was just trying out different churches for Sundays. And then one of the Sundays I had met a younger girl who was around our age and young adults, and she had told me about it. I think it was a worship night was the first time I went, or it was actually a YA nights on a Friday, and so me and a big group of girls went, and I loved it so much. And so I've been going since last fall. I really love it. It's just so good.
That's really cool. How did you get involved with singing?
I have actually led worship since my freshman year in high school. So I did it at my home church, and they had asked me if I had wanted to try it, and I kept saying no because everybody knew I could sing, but I was just terrified. I hated the stage. I just did not like public speaking, which is very ironic now, but I was just very in my shell. I didn't want to branch out. I just wanted to stay to myself. But the guy who actually ended up marrying the pastor's daughter, he came to the church first as the worship leader, and then he married the pastor's daughter, which is just really cool. He also tried to be the youth leader for a little while, and so we became really good friends, and he kind of, in a way, made me start leading worship. And so once I came to YA and I started just being in community with people, I just really felt called by the Lord to start leading again. I just felt kind of lonely not leading anymore. And I loved hearing all the other girls sing because they're so anointed. Their voices are just beautiful. But I believe I had messaged one of the leaders just asking if there were any openings and stuff. And at that time, there weren't any openings. A couple weeks later, they had actually put on announcements that they were needing more people for YA, and immediately that next Thursday, I went and signed up for it. And I told my friend Colin Stewart, who actually plays acoustic for us, shameless plug, I am the person who got him to start with us, because when I signed up, I told him about it, and he was like, "Oh, that would be so fun if we did this together," because we had just became friends a couple months before that, because we were both freshmen, and so the Lord knew what I needed.
Same tryouts that I was at when we started
Yeah.
at Celebration, young adults. My wife was there too. I remember Colin trying out then.
Mm-hmm.
My wife and I both tried out also for vocals, and that was a game changer.
Mm-hmm.
And Victoria did awesome. She's a very critical part of our worship team. God's using her in great ways.
Thank
Oh,
you.
yeah, you're definitely anointed.
Thank you.
Definitely.
That means so much.
We had a panel at young adults
Mm-hmm.
where a few of us, Victoria and I included, were kind of sharing some hurts, habits, and hang-ups. I really actually was super relating to what you were sharing in kind of a way that I wouldn't have expected. Bailey got your name out, and I was all for it. I was like, yeah, let's get Victoria on. And so now you're here.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I still find it weird asking how to start your testimony.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, start your testimony. No, I'm just kidding. No, but go ahead and, I don't know, go as far back as you want to go where you find that story starts.
Yeah, for sure. I'm definitely very blessed with how I grew up. I did grow up in a strong Christian household, so we went to church every Sunday. We went to church every Wednesday. And I was always in all the Sunday school classes, and I was that little girl where I would show off. So I memorized like the whole New Testament, and we would have like little show and tells in Sunday school where they would see like how many kids could like memorize it. I was always the first one to do it, but I'm definitely blessed with how I grew up, because I feel like a lot of people who have gone through like certain addictions or just hard times, they didn't grow up in like a good household sometimes, and so like that led to stuff. So I feel like that's a little reason why mine is somewhat different. Like I did grow up in such a great household, but I think that's almost why I started doing things wrong, just because I had so much, I guess, like pressure on me. And I grew up in a small town. I don't know if y'all know where this is, but I grew up in Kahoma. It's by Big Spring.
I didn't know that existed.
Most people think I say Oklahoma, so it's fine. Growing up with everybody knowing like, oh, it's Victoria, the church girl, and like, it makes me really sad knowing that younger me was ashamed of being like the known church girl. Like I was so proud of it when I was really young. But then once I got to junior high and high school, that's when, I'm sure like y'all relate a little bit too, but especially as a female, like you just want acceptance from people.
Yeah.
And no matter if it's males, your other female peers, or just even just the teachers in the school. You want them to accept you. Once you find out that they somewhat don't, most people start changing things about themselves so that they can somehow achieve the acceptance. And so I believe 8th grade year, I did end up start watching porn. Almost like I was getting something out of it that I wasn't receiving from the people around me. Like my parents loved me, but in my mindset, being young, there's a difference between your love from your parents and then your love from your peers. My parents are gonna love me no matter what I do, but these people, like it's gonna be obvious if it's real. And so that just went down into like, I want to feel loved by, like, I think it's kind of funny because I'm not like this anymore, but like, I wanted a boy to like me. You know, being a young girl, like, you see, like, these other, like, super cute junior high couples, and you're just like, I want something. And I can't even look at junior high couples anymore because I'm like, I'm so glad I didn't have that. And I was also raised where I couldn't date till I was 16. But just with the porn thing, it's like with anything you can get addicted to. Oh, I'm just going to try it, see what it's about, and then that'll be my one and done thing. It's never like that. I always saw like movies where people would talk about it, or like when people would like come to the school and talk about like drug addiction, and they're like, if you do it once, you're never going to go back. And I always thought that was so dumb. But then once I got to that one thing that I tried that one time, I was like, oh man, like it just gets you, like physically, emotionally, spiritually was a big one. And then nobody ever knew about it. And so mine wasn't really like people knew I was addicted to this. Like nobody knew. And it turned into several years of just me getting further and further away from the Lord and not even knowing it. I thought I was still just as strong in my faith and just as proud. I eventually realized that I'm not the same person. I wasn't the same person, but nobody knew it. It's like I was struggling alone. Obviously, I wasn't alone, but like my parents didn't know. None of my friends knew. It's like they would still make those jokes of like, oh, all of us are going to go out this weekend, but like don't tell Victoria. Either she won't want to come or she'll come and then she'll go home and like tell everybody what we were doing. It's like they would still like make those jokes, which just made it worse. And then, like, more and more stuff would happen, and then I'd watch more. I never got anything out of it. I thought I did. And, like, I thought it fulfilled me. I thought it just gave me I guess, like, that sense of love. But I think that's where it's so wrong. Like, it makes you think that that's what it is. And then a bunch of people grow up with a really just tainted view of what love is. Like, they'll start thinking that certain things are okay when it's not okay. So fast forward to my senior year of high school. I'm about to leave the small town. Not that this town it's still kind of small, but it's a lot bigger than where I'm from. So, like, I'm getting ready to go to college. It's still all going on, but still nobody knows about it. I'm still by myself. At this point, I've been leading worship at my church for 3-4 years because I started my freshman year. Everybody would be like, oh, like, I love it when you lead worship, and I get so excited. But I realized that I was leading worship at that time for compliments from people. I wasn't doing it for the Lord, because with my addiction at the time, that had just really messed up my heart. And so I wasn't giving this gift that I have for the Lord. I was doing it so that other people would know things.
And how would you feel when you were getting these compliments, knowing kind of that your heart wasn't even in it?
Right after I would get them, so, like, in the moment, I was excited because, like, I had gotten a compliment. I'm a big words of affirmation person. I think it also comes from that love that I didn't receive from people when I was younger, because, like, I had never heard those things. And so once I heard the people saying, like, oh, like, your voice is so beautiful, like, I can tell that you really love the Lord when you're singing. In that moment, I felt great about it. But then later that night, when I was alone and I could actually reflect and think about what had happened that morning, I felt horrible. And it was like that anytime I'd watch a video too. In that second, it felt great, looked great, whatever. But then once I had the time to think about what I did or what I watched, what I heard, what somebody had said to me, it immediately went back to, like, what am I doing? Like, this isn't glorifying the Lord in any way. Mm-hmm. If the Lord gave me my eyes, why would I spend my time watching something? So just from experience, like, it hurt me so much.
Is that why you would keep going back to it? It was a numbing type of experience. It would get you out of reality.
I think in a way it probably was. Honestly, sometimes I can't really even say, like, why I did it. I just know one of, like, the main triggers was just, like, the acceptance thing. Like, I didn't, like, feel love, and so, like, I guess it was numbing, so, like, I just didn't feel anything while I was watching it. But then, like, once I got so deep, it was during it. I was like, okay, I need to stop. Like, this isn't okay. Mm-hmm. What am I doing? Like, this isn't from the Lord.
I really like that you said sometimes you didn't even know why. Like, you don't even know how you got to that, because that's a real kind of indicator of an addiction. Mm-hmm. That's what you hear from a lot of people is, mm-hmm. man, I don't even know why I did it that time.
Yeah.
You start to lose focus on the why, and that's when it takes a hold of you in a whole new way, when you stop making an excuse for it.
Mm-hmm.
I think eventually it even starts to normalize to you, because you do it so much. You're just like, yeah, this is normal. This is what mm-hmm. I do. I do it at the same time every day, and mm-hmm. you don't even realize it. You're too busy thinking about the fact that it's just hurting you, which is good. You need to notice that it's hurting you, mm-hmm. but you don't realize why you're doing it.
Yeah, and if it gets to the point where it's normalized, that means you've moved it fully in and moved God out. It just doesn't work having both.
Yeah.
Having some commitment and reputation and a lifestyle honoring God and having something in it, it's always going to stir up. And so once it gets to the point where it doesn't even bother you anymore, that's dangerous.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So from where you were at, leaving high school, senior year.
Yeah, so my senior year, we had just gotten a new youth pastor at my church, and I was like extremely close with the previous youth pastor. And so I kind of had like that bitter mindset where I just didn't think our new youth pastor was going to be as good as the old one. And so I started going to a different church with one of my friends, but the youth pastor at the time met my mom somehow. I think he might have asked somebody else. He had talked about the church camp that we were going to go to that summer, and I wasn't going to go to it because it was my senior year. Like, I didn't really feel like going to the camp, and I think I knew that camp was going to be good for me, and I think that's why I didn't want to go. So I think part of me knew that if I go here, the Lord's going to speak to me. And at the time, I was like, this is comfortable. This feels good. This looks good. But if I go to this place and it's slightly uncomfortable, I'm not going to like it. So I kind of just blocked it out. But he was very persistent. I think he spoke to my mom several times, maybe. But my mom would come home and she'd be like, hey, like he said, you don't have to go as a camper, but he really wants you to go to camp with them, like as a leader. And so I was like, okay, well, I mean, I'll think about it. Maybe I could go as a leader. But I was just sitting in my room and I just started crying, which is very normal for me. But I just started crying. And I was like, what is wrong with me? Why am I so emotional right now? But I just started thinking about everything. And I was like, man, young Victoria would be so sad. Like, she was so proud to tell everybody about Jesus. I just kept thinking about, like, if I'm supposed to lead these young girls, how am I going to do that if I'm still so stuck where I am now?
Yeah.
If one of these young girls walks up to me and she's like, hey, Victoria, I'm really struggling with this. How do I get over it? How am I going to tell her how to get over it if I'm struggling with it? And I'm currently doing that. Because then all the words coming out of my mouth, they mean nothing. It's just random words. And I'm just making up stuff to potentially make her feel better. But I don't actually know if any of that's going to help her. Because I'm still not out of it. That kind of just immediately ended it. So I guess the time before I had the conversation with my mom, I think like that was kind of the last time.
You're talking about when you were crying in your room?
Yes. Yeah. And like, if you're a leader, you have to let everything out so that the Lord can come in. The Lord is working through you, and He's speaking to them just through your mouth. Like, that needed to be changed. And so that was, I mean, luckily, my last time was whenever I had done it before that day that I was crying in my room. One of the questions that I had saw that y'all had written down was like, where was the Lord during all of this? I kind of laughed when I saw the question because at that time, I didn't think He was anywhere. You know, He's there, but...
Over there.
Yeah, like way over there. He's off in the distance. He's kind of just doing his thing with other people. I'm kind of just here, as far away as you can imagine. So in Luke 15, verses 20 through 24, it's talking about the prodigal son. He realizes that what he was doing was wrong. And he realizes, like, I'm living as low as I can be living right now. I was treated so much better at home. I was given all of these things. I was loved at home. The people I'm with, the things I'm with right now, I'm not getting anything true out of this. And so he decides to go home back to his loving father. And so in verse 20, he got up and went to his father, but while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion for him. He ran to his son, threw his arms around him, and kissed him. The son said to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. But the father said to his servants, Quick, bring the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Bring the fattened calf and kill it. Let's have a feast and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. So they began to celebrate. God's a gentleman. He won't force you to do anything. He wants you to do these things and he wants you to follow him, but he's never going to force you to do something. he might send a little bit of conviction your way just to lovingly let you know what you're doing is wrong and this would be better for you. It's never going to be, you have to do this or you're not my child anymore. Mm-hmm. I had gotten through it, but I was so ashamed that I had done all of those things and I had watched all of those things. But then just reading this really helped because he still loves us so much, mm-hmm. and we're still his children. No matter how far away we go, everybody sees it as some tainted thing. Like, they're dirty, they aren't worthy of this, they've done so many things wrong. Like, this easily could have been prevented. Why'd you let yourself get there? Why'd you let yourself get that far after you got there? Like, you could have easily stopped. And I think that's what I was telling myself when I was going through it. I can easily stop. It's not that bad. Mm-hmm. And I never knew how bad it was. And then I think that's when I realized how bad it was. Mm-hmm. Because I stopped realizing how much it was affecting me.
Earlier you mentioned about how, like, he's always with you. Mm-hmm. You can almost think of it as you're the one running from him.
Yes.
And the dude's chasing after you. So he's going to be there with me the whole time, no matter what I do. God really loves you. Mm-hmm. Like, he left the 99 for the one.
Yeah.
You're that one.
Yeah, and I think, like, at the time, I thought he was so far away, but then once I got through it, I have realized that he was always there. Mm-hmm. And that no matter what I do or what I did, he's still like, Victoria, you're my child. You are so loved. And I'm going to use all the stuff that you went through that you're ashamed of. And now you can talk to other people and tell them that, you know, you were a worship leader and you still did something. We're all people. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to do stupid stuff. We're going to do stuff that harms us. But if anything, he's going to use it for you. And he's going to use it for other people down the line.
There are going to be, even if you every day make sure you tell everybody that you see, I'm not perfect, you're going to be up on that stage singing and people are going to look at you and they're going to see perfection. Mm-hmm. Because of what it is that you're doing. You're not doing it for yourself at all.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to ask, do you think that if you didn't turn to God, that you would have been able to stop? Or do you think that turning back to God is the way that you were able to stop?
It was a few years of it happening. It wasn't just 2 times. And then I was like, okay, I shouldn't be watching this. I can stop. It was years. Mm-hmm. Not even 1 year. Like, it was multiple years. It was my last year of junior high and then every year of high school till around the middle of my senior year. So it was multiple years. So you can figure out how many days that was. I don't even know if it would be. It was a lot. It was a lot. And once you're that far deep into something, no matter what it is, that's not something you can do on your own. Like, that was just uncomparable to any other obstacle I've gotten through, whatever. I think somewhat my motivation came from the younger girls. When I turned to the Lord, it was like okay, I'm gonna make this ridiculously easy. It was somewhat annoying, which doesn't make sense. It was somewhat annoying how easy it was once I allowed him in. Because I had tried to stop so much by myself. And I was like, okay, today's the last time. And I'm serious about it. It was not the last time. But then once I was just like, okay, take myself out of the situation. Lord, do whatever you want. Whatever you want. Just, if that means I'm not gonna have my phone for a little while, or certain parts of the night when I might feel lonely, when it might pop up, if that's what it takes, like, just take all of it from me. It was just like an immediate thing. Like, it just left my body. Like, I never wanted to anymore. I mean, it's been, I guess, 2 years now. And Awesome. It's just like every single day of the 2 years, like, I haven't even felt like tempted to go back and watch anything.
Wow.
The action of pressing play, looking it up, but also just the temptation of even grabbing your phone while you're thinking of it. Like, it all left my body at the same time.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I've never actually thought about it as annoyingly easy, but it annoys me when I think about it now that you say that. Like, because of all the multiple attempts. I don't want to underplay porn addiction.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to say that it's not the same as drug addiction because putting something in my body. Me being in the recovery community, I know very well that it is a spiritual issue.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
More than a physical and a mental, it's a spiritual issue. Maybe heroin, it'd be this really long time away from it before you're actually physically not dependent anymore. But everything else, a week or less. But why do people still have so much trouble staying away from it? The same with porn addiction. And, I really do think that our culture, our world does not help us out much with understanding it that way because anytime that you do hear about porn in public, it is a joke to justify that everybody else does it or that it's okay. Mm-hmm. Because if I think, well, there's somebody that really doesn't, which is really almost impossible to know. But if I actually started to believe, man, there's somebody that doesn't do it, I might have hope. You are going around saying, I'm free from that. Mm-hmm. And that is hope. That is hope. Most of my entire childhood life, I never heard somebody say, I used to watch porn and now I don't. Or never heard somebody say that I've never watched porn before.
Yeah.
In the community and the people I'm surrounded with now, I hear that stuff. And that's crazy. Yeah. The listeners need to hear that. That you don't have to keep going. I've watched porn, and it's done nothing but destroy things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you hear people watching porn, but you never hear anybody overcome it because it's such a normal thing. Mm-hmm. And it shouldn't be. In reality, sex is just an awesome thing when you get married. Mm-hmm. But it's such a destructive thing when you're not married because it just consumes you.
It's a gift from God for the right time and the right place. Mm-hmm. And, of course, the enemy is going to take a gift from God and try to get his people to use it in a way that it's not intended. Victoria, so what is it like now?
Still throughout, like, that whole time of transitioning through the summer into college, nobody knew about it. I still had so much shame that it just happened in the first place that I just did not want to tell anybody. Mm-hmm. I would, like, go to church groups and go to YA, and I started getting plugged into all of these things, and I just knew the Lord needed me to say something. I didn't know if it meant share every single thing that I've ever done wrong in my life to somebody, or if it just meant saying the most recent thing. Like, I just knew I needed to talk to somebody, and it was actually Caitlin's small group. At the time, I still just wasn't I was definitely social, but only with specific people. With new people, I just did not want to speak at all. But as soon as I walked into her apartment, like, we sat down, we were talking about stuff, she had actually shared stuff about her past and certain things that she went through and how she got through it. It was just this overwhelming feeling of, you should tell Caitlin. Yeah. And I was like, no, I'm not doing that. That's so weird. It's my very first time at this girl's house and you want me to tell her that? Like, that's so personal. No, I'm not doing that. A couple minutes later, you should tell Caitlin. No, I can't do it. That's so weird. Can't do it. Well, she had walked off, I think just in her kitchen, like, I don't even know, 6 feet away.
Alone.
And so, yeah, she was alone. But I couldn't even walk up to her. I texted her and I said, hey, in a second, can I please talk to you alone? And she could just see the look on my face. I was terrified. Like, I got so nauseous. So when I get nervous about anything, it could be the smallest thing ever. It makes me nauseous, which is just really unfortunate because a lot of things make me nervous. I overthink everything. But I texted her and I was like, hey, can I please talk to you in private? And Caitlin being herself, she was like, yes, of course. So we left everybody in the living room. She was like, hey, just keep chatting. We're going to go over here for a minute. So we go in her room. She said, hey, what's wrong? Tears. I immediately broke down because she was just like, what's wrong? I didn't even tell her it was something bad. Just knowing her, she's definitely a people person, and she just loves helping people. Mm-hmm. I feel so blessed that she was my leader just because she talked about something hard. And so the Lord was like, okay, you heard her talk about this, so she's willing to talk about her struggles. Why would she judge you on yours? She went through something, she got through it. You went through something, and you also got through it. And so I spoke to her about it. I was like, I just really don't want people to know that I did this. Like, I'm trying to be on the serve team. Like, I want people to think that I'm, like, a good Christian, but I just feel like this takes that away from me. But I just remember one of the very first things she told me, which obviously made me cry more, like, her first sentence that came out of her mouth was, I'm so glad you told me, and I'm so proud of you for telling me. Me being a baby, started crying more. But at that point, it was just relief. I was like, wow, like, I told somebody, and they received it with grace. And they gave me grace back. And she said that she was proud. Mm-hmm. That was definitely, like, a big turning point in my heart. Where instead of being ashamed about it, I should be proud that I got through it.
In the recovery community, there's a lot of little sayings, but one is not regretting the past, nor wishing to shut the door on it. You know, in light of the fact that nobody is perfect, God can use anybody. Mm-hmm. But he can't use you where you won't let him. Yeah. You know, and if somebody's sitting right beside me, and they say, hey, I'm struggling with porn. If I am struggling with porn, and I will not tell anybody that I'm struggling with porn, then in a situation where God probably wished he could use me right there, I have made myself useless. Yeah. Unless I'm willing to share. Yeah. Your moment of confession, it just brought me right back to mine with porn. Like, and I say this because I know that just as Paul tells us to confess our sins to one another, that we may be healed. It was over at that point. Words of encouragement for anybody, like, just tell it to somebody who loves you and loves God. Mm-hmm. And just watch it change and believe it'll change, and it'll change.
So you mentioned how you told Caitlin and stuff, and that nobody else knew about it prior. Mm-mm. Could you see an effect in the way you were acting towards people as you were struggling with it? Was there a certain way you were acting towards people, and maybe people were being pushed away? Or
in a way, I couldn't really be my most, like, genuine self around people, because this was obviously something that at the time I was never going to tell anybody. It definitely, I guess, impacted how I was socially around people, because they would say those things like, you've had such an easy life, like, you have 2 parents who are still married, like, what could you ever struggle with, Victoria? And on the inside, I was like, oh, little do you know. So I think I was more reserved, and even talking to my older sister currently, throughout the past, I guess, year, she will tell me, like, I've seen such a big difference in you. Like, how you talk to people, the way you love people, how vulnerable you can get just because of that one conversation I had with Caitlin. Because right after the conversation with Caitlin, I think it was maybe like a week or 2 later, I mustered up the courage to tell my parents.
Wow.
That was a rough one.
Okay.
At the time, I was very upset with their responses, but over the past year, I've matured a little bit. So I know that they were just sad that I went through that under their roof and they didn't know about it. The conversation just didn't go well. Like, my dad was kind of like, this will ruin your future marriage. Like, if you get married and you tell your husband this, like, he's not necessarily going to change his mind, but it's going to cause things. And so that kind of brought me back to the unlovable thing.
I'm sorry that your parents didn't hear it as just a confession to get closer and took it as an opportunity to give you a lesson. By this point, they should have known. You already know the consequences because you're already feeling the consequences.
Mm-hmm. My mom kind of came from a place of like, I shouldn't go out and tell people that I went through it. I know my mom very well. So I think it's just she doesn't want people to think that she did something wrong raising me. Mm-hmm. And I can easily say that none of this was on them. I was raised knowing right from wrong. Like how you had brought up sex, like I knew, like this is a thing that we save for after marriage. And I knew that it was a beautiful thing when you do it in God's timing. Like, I knew all of those things. The enemy can get you, and he doesn't care how you were raised. He can still get that child and still somehow persuade them to do something horrible. It was one Thursday after church. I don't even remember what was talked about, but this was a really scary one. I could tell that I should talk to Keenan and Beth. And that was the one where I was like, oh man. Because I'd already started leading worship at YA. I was just, it was really bad. I was so nervous to tell Keenan and Beth. So I was like, I'm leading worship at this church with these amazing people that I look up to. And now I'm going to tell like the two like, I guess, higher up people of the church that while I'm leading these people to a very just beautiful, sacred place of worship, this is something that I have done before. And I just remember, it's funny that I was thinking that, but I just remember sitting down with Keenan and Beth. I'm obviously crying. It's a reoccurring theme with me. Because I was so scared to tell them. And I remember Beth started tearing up because she just wanted to reassure me, once again, what Caitlin had said. Like, we're so proud. Like, the fact that you've only known us for a few months, but you know that this is something you want to bring up and you want just the Lord to take off of you. Because I'd gotten through it, but I don't think my heart had gotten over it. And I just remember Keenan was telling me, don't think I have to get through this long process. Like, take it day by day. Take it hour by hour. And just him telling me these things, I was like, okay, well, like, if I can talk to Keenan and Beth about it, giving me just an unbelievable amount of grace, and they were just giving me so much love about it, why am I ashamed about this? Colton had actually said this on the panel, that you shouldn't be ashamed about your past because it has turned you into who you are in your present. They've shaped me and molded me into the young woman I am today. And so that eventually led to the panel. Just like the past year has just really been a season of just the Lord showing me grace through my peers. I did eventually tell Cody that I went through it. I mean, y'all know him, but Cody's my boyfriend. So I texted him, and I did make the mistake of saying, hey, can we talk? That was a really bad choice of words.
How much time went from the time you asked him that to you actually talking to him?
It was just a day. But
that's
to
a
him,
long
but to him,
time.
Yes. See, to me, I hadn't realized how poor of a choice of words that was. But then, well, he sent the message to his family group chat, and several of his family members were like, what if she breaks up with you?
Oh, no.
And I was like, why would y'all tell him that?
Some relationship advice I learned in marriage, small group. Never take your problems to your family because they're always going to take your side. and that will never help anything.
Yeah.
It's cool, but it won't help. It won't
Yeah.
help.
You don't win. No.
Yeah.
There's no winning.
Oh yeah. I think we like went and got groceries or something. He was like, "Okay, well, do you want to talk now?" I was like, I know myself. I should not be in public after this conversation because I'm going to be a mess. And just knowing, I guess, how my parents had reacted, obviously I shouldn't put that on anybody else, but I just kind of assumed, like, this is going to be horrible. He thought I was breaking up with him, but I was scared to tell him because I thought once I brought this up, he was going to break up with me. But that's just where my mind went. And it was once again just one of those conversations of grace, because then that led to both of us talking about different things. None of the stuff that either one of us had gone through were necessarily the same thing, but it just led to so much more. I guess it made our relationship stronger because we knew those, like, dark, dirty, those small things that nobody wants to bring up.
I think we need more voices. You know, even in San Angelo, we have a very large recovery community, and you can throw a rock and hit somebody who can tell you about their sober story. But as far as porn addiction, you're turning over rocks looking for somebody that's willing to talk about it. That's what you're walking in. The Cody conversation wasn't that long ago?
No, it was this past August.
Awesome. So what's it been like since then?
We've definitely gotten a lot closer, and like now we can talk about more deep stuff, but I think individually we've both gotten closer with the Lord as well. If we choose to talk about, like, oh, what was your favorite thing about YA? We aren't scared to say, this was my favorite thing because of something I've gone through. Like, I feel like usually, like, if you're with a group of friends that you don't really open up with each other, you'll say, like, oh, I really liked that so-and-so said this thing tonight. It's not a deep enough conversation. Once you give the why of why you really liked that, any conversation can turn into a deep conversation. But
man, what would you say to that person who's just trying to learn more? Maybe struggling with this in the moment.
I thought I knew what it was, but then I didn't actually know what it was till I was too far. I do think that some of those, like, Christian pages, they're really helpful. There's one guy who posts a lot specifically only on, like, porn addiction, and he'll give statistics of how many people go through it, the ages, and it even gives, like, scriptures of how that specific person got through it and how much better his life is now that he's gotten through it. I'm so upset that I can't think of what the page is called.
There's tons of great pages out there. I'm always trying to follow them. And I can't remember this guy's name either. He was a former porn star. He's actually a pastor now, which is pretty wild. And he was like male performer of the year a couple of times, and just one day it just bam, like it just hit him.
Yeah.
Wow. This is going to be our first interview where I didn't hear about a relapse. When you were done, that was it. It's been it since then.
Yeah.
Cool. And what do you plan to do? What do you plan on doing to continue the abstinence?
Every time I share about it, I'm reminded how blessed I am. And just knowing that there could be a 12-year-old girl who is thinking about doing it deep in the middle of it, or she might be getting out of it. Girl or guy, if they're listening to this, they can know, like, okay, well, these are certain steps that she took, or just the fact that I got out of it. Like, I'm not ashamed about it anymore. It's like every time I share about it, I'm just reminded that I got through this because I allowed the Lord to use me. And he continues to use me to keep talking about it.
Yeah, that's good.
Unfortunately, I feel like this is geared more towards men. Like, it's publicized that it's an issue for men. In a way, I wanted to be that for younger girls because I had never heard of a single woman ever going through it.
You are a voice.
It will reach a lot of people. I really believe that. Thank you so much for sharing your testimony.
Yeah, of course.
Do you have any last minute things you'd like to say?
I just once again want to remind all of them that it's not something to be ashamed of, and you aren't dirty, you aren't unworthy. If anything, God sees you as just his wonderful child.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Dear Heavenly Father, I just want to thank you for whenever myself and the other guests who have come here, we have been ashamed from other things, just knowing that you use all of our pain and all of our, at the time, shaming things, shameful things, just whatever we aren't proud of, you use it, and you say, like, you are my precious child. You are so loved. You are my handiwork. You are a masterpiece. And just the fact that you will use anything that we go through and you will turn it into something for you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Hi, I'm Bailey.
And I'm Trent.
Thank you so much for listening to this new episode.
Yeah, hit the subscribe button.
And like.
And leave comments. And if you really liked it, share it with somebody.
Tune in to this next episode.
We got something special for you.
I'm excited.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like being told I'm wrong, especially being a woman.
Yeah.
Like, we don't like being told we're wrong. And so